All right, well, we have a quorum, so I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting of the Economic Development Commission for the city of Bloomington to order. It's Wednesday, June 9th, 2021, and it's about 16 minutes after 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So first thing we normally do is do a call to order. So Vanessa and Kate, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, Vanessa McClary, Commissioner.
Hi, Kate Rosenberger.
Okay, Kurt Zorn from the commission. And then staff, please.
Jane Cooper-Smith, staff.
Alex Crowley, staff.
And Larry Allen, legal staff.
All right. And as we usually do, we turn to review and approval of minutes for our May 2021 meeting. Any comments, corrections, suggestions, whatever?
I'll make a
And
motion to accept the minutes.
thank you, Vanessa. You beat me to it. Thank you. That's great. Hey, can I get a second from you?
I second. I'll just stay unmuted. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So we have a motion and a second, and I'm in favor, so I think that makes it unanimous. So we might as well just, I guess we have to go around, Larry, right? So, and do it verbally.
Larry's
Sorry
nodding.
about that. So Vanessa, your vote.
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and I vote yes also, so it's unanimous. Old business, Jane.
Oh, sorry. The retreat at the Switchyard update. I just wanted to mention that it was approved, or that we presented the resolutions to council last week. And Larry, are they voting tonight?
So they designated the land to be an economic revitalization area, which is step one. There will be a public hearing on the final tax abatement approval and the ERA designation next Wednesday.
So mainly I just wanted to update you all that it's moving along and was very well received by Common Council. So we're pleased with that.
However, if any of you have objections or remonstrances you'd like to present to the Common Council, feel free to show up at Wednesday, June 16th at 6 p.m. or just send them to Kate directly. I'm pretty sure she takes those in her personal email.
I was going to say, yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jane. Our new business, we have our annual tax abatement compliance report, and I'll turn it over to Jane.
Okay, well, you all have seen this report by now. Kate listened to it last week, and this is the same format we use annually, but I will read through it to make sure we are, compliant. So this year, ESD is making the annual abatement activity and compliance presentation in a different order than normal. Typically, the clerk would receive all active CF1s, and within 45 days of that receipt, ESD would provide a compliance report first to the EDC and then to Common Council. However, this year, because the receipt of the very first CF1 was so early, it dictated the schedule. And so we were obligated to provide the abatement compliance report last week to council, and which they approved. And then today we're providing it to the Economic Development Commission. If you remember back to our last meeting, you all empowered me to present it to council, provided we found all of the abatements in compliance, and we did. So here we are. As a reminder, tax abatements are reviewed by staff, recommended by EDC, approved by Common Council, and administered by the county. The general standards for tax abatements were updated in 2021 to formalize the city's commitment to supporting affordable housing developments. City of Bloomington tax abatement review criteria require capital investment as an enhancement to the tax base in addition to either an increase in full-time permanent living wage jobs, a significant increase in wages, or the creation of affordable housing units. The evaluative criteria were also updated in 2021 to reference current and future planning documents that relate to quality of life and sustainability, affordable housing, community service, and community character. Sorry. Tax abatements are typically phased in and reduce tax liability on the increase in assessed value with terms that range from 1 to 10 years. Each schedule of abatement is customized to each project, and those schedules are included in the resolution approving the tax abatement. This feels a little bit like preaching to the choir today. Even though we have recently participated in the authorization process for retreat at the Switchyard, I will briefly summarize it. ESD receives an application for abatement in the state form SB1, Statement of Benefits. ESD staff reviews the application and makes a recommendation to EDC to approve an economic revitalization area, an abatement term and schedule, in an economic development target area, if that's appropriate. If approved, ESD brings EDC's formal recommendation to Common Council for a designating resolution and public hearing. Annual reporting requirements demand that city staff compare estimated benefits from the SB1 to actual benefits on the state's CF1 forms and present those findings to both EDC and Common Council. And, oh, where did it go? Okay, this is strange. We were about to get into the fun stuff.
This happens to me sometimes whenever my Adobe runs out of memory. So you may need to
Yeah.
reload it.
I can also just, here, I'll stop sharing. No, not new share.
Jane, do you want me to share? Because I have it open.
It's okay. I'm just opening a new.
Okay.
My more reliable Google slide.
I will say
I
this
apologize.
happens to me when
Okay.
I have 2 documents open on my city computer. So
Yeah, this is how it goes. Okay,
Okay.
sorry for the delay. Here we can compare estimated economic impacts in the left-hand column with actual new investment in the right. This slide serves as a good summary of abatement activity.
Jane, I don't think you have that up. You're still on your old screen. Sorry.
There you go. Now can you see it?
Yeah, there we are. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, estimated impact in the left-hand column, actual new investment in the right-hand column. Please note that the totals of actual new investment for commercial real estate and personal property are low because Catalent will not have its final investment numbers until it concludes its projects in November 2021. So they triggered their abatement, but they haven't finished making their investment. Yeah, sorry, I think that's all I have to say there. This slide translates economic impacts into jobs created, jobs retained, and related salary figures. As you can see, total proposed new full-time permanent living wage jobs for all active SB1s were 337, with total new proposed salaries of $18,314,362. Actual new jobs dwarf this estimate at 1,126 jobs and actual new salaries of $55,756,229. Total new and retained jobs are calculated at 2016. Staff reduced the number from the total reported on CF1s because Catalent used the same total employment figure for each of its 3 abatements, which, although technically correct as it relates to the fields in the CF1s, would have resulted in over-reporting for our totals. So we we averaged that number. Conclusions that can be drawn from this slide are that Bloomington has seen a massive increase in employment relating to growth at Catalent specifically, although actual new salaries were slightly lower than what was predicted. This slide summarizes the increase in assessed values, which is an indicator of the future increase in the tax base. That is, the city is abating a portion of this increase in assessed value, but because each abatement is limited to a 10-year term, we know that ultimately these abatements spur an increase in revenue. So it then gets into each individual abatement. I'll just highlight a few or one from each category. So I think if we look at Southern Knoll here, well, here's a nice photo of the completed building, which is exciting. Southern Knoll is an abatement on real estate improvements. Residents moved in during the pandemic in 2020, and it has seen full occupancy ever since. This development is off of 3rd Street, adjacent to Rose Hill Cemetery on the near west side. It includes 31 affordable units of housing, 7 of which are set aside as permanent supportive housing, and 7 of which are set aside for persons living with developmental disabilities. Although this abatement is required by the state to report on estimated and new jobs and salaries on the CF1, Bloomington's net gain with this abatement is affordable housing units, especially the permanent supportive housing. This abatement is in year 1 at a rate of 98%, and Milestone's investment in Southern Knoll exceeds its estimate. I thought I would also highlight Urban Station, which represents an abatement for mixed-use real estate property improvements. Actual new investment was $3 million more than what was estimated at $14.5 million. Urban Station estimated that it would retain 10 jobs and create 5. It ended up retaining 4 jobs and creating 4 jobs. However, the new and retained salaries were slightly higher than anticipated at an average of $37,500 for each salary. The property owner also guarantees 10 units will remain at workforce housing rates for 99 years. This abatement has a 10-year term with a decreasing scale. It is in year 4 at 85%. And after year 5, the rate drops from 80% to 30%. So I just point that out to show that the abated value will really drop significantly in another year. Staff finds this property owner to be in substantial compliance. And then the next one I thought we would look at in more detail is the Cook Pharmica DBA Catalent Biologics Personal Property Abatement, which derives from Resolution 1506. This abatement is a term of 10 years at a flat rate of 70%. Resolution 1506 was issued before Catalent purchased Cook Pharmica. It abates personal property improvements in support of job creation. Actual new investment trumps estimated investment by over $6 million. As the estimated new jobs field doesn't reflect the incredible growth that Catalent has seen over the last several years. Therefore, actual new employees came in at 1,167 more jobs than the 70 that were anticipated. Similarly, actual new salaries came in much higher than the estimate. This abatement has been an important tool for keeping high quality employment in our city center, and this abatement is in year 3. Projects in process. Oh, Malcolm's here. I'm sorry. I hope he wasn't waiting long. I highlighted Real America for council last week, but of course this group is pretty familiar with this project at this time. So I'll just say it's at 1730 South Walnut and would be a real property abatement in service of affordable housing. And then to summarize other EDC activity, we didn't recommend any new abatements in 2020. The EDC amended and approved updated abatement guidelines, which were approved by Common Council in January of 21. And the EDC did not issue any new bond inducements in 2020. However, the council authorized economic development bonds for the renovation of Walnut Woods and Reverend Butler Apartments by Bloomington Rad 1 LP. The total amount authorized for the bonds was up to $11 million. And a couple of project updates: Limestone Crossing, which received final approval in late 2019 for revenue bonds to facilitate the rehabilitation of 208 units at 60% AMI, so a high volume of highly affordable units. Those renovations were completed and passed their final inspection 2 weeks ago, so that's really exciting. And then back to, I should have put this in the other order, but back to Walnut Woods and Reverend Butler. BHA reports that 65% of Walnut Woods and Reverend Butler renovations are complete. 27% of the project construction budget has been awarded to women or minority business enterprises, and all renovations are estimated to be complete by December of 2021. And that's it for this presentation. I'd be happy to take questions if anyone has them, or go back and look at the specific individual abatements.
Any questions for Jane? Jane, apparently you did a good job.
Jane, just one thing, would you want to highlight a couple of the questions we received from Councilmember Piedmont Smith, just to talk about those and how you address them? I don't want to steal your thunder because you did such an excellent job of answering them.
Oh, no,
Let me give you an
it's totally fine. So Councilmember Piedmont Smith raised a few really important questions last week that related to, I guess I don't know how to sub compliance. Like, how are we're verifying in this report that the numbers are good on the CF1s, but how does the city staff verify that the properties are actually populating the buildings in the way that they're reporting on their CF1s? So that's done by the hand department. And we actually received verification yesterday from them that the reported rates and percentages are what is actually being implemented. So that's really great. And then her second question was specifically about the salaries reported by Southern Nolan Milestone. Just the fact that this would be $14,731 would obviously not be compliant with the Bloomington's living wage ordinance. It wouldn't be something that we would really even want to endorse. But we spoke with Chuck Heiselman, I think is his name. Alex, is that right? And he said that this rate was low because they triggered the abatement late in the year. And then additionally, Larry, please comment if you can explain it better. I'm obviously go off the cuff, but because they have fewer than 10 employees, they're not required to participate in the city's, to be compliant with the city's living wage ordinance. Is that, Larry, do you agree?
Yeah, so for commercial entities, if they have more than 10 employees and they receive a benefit, then they're a covered employer for the city's living wage ordinance. If they have fewer than 10 employees, then they're not. Obviously, they do receive a benefit, but this particular entity, which owns Southern Nolan Milestone Ventures, has fewer than 10 employees here, so it's not covered under the living wage ordinance. If it's a nonprofit, so for housing authorities, similar abatements ever in the future that create nonprofits, that number is actually 15 instead of 10. So they'd have to have at least 15 employees before the living wage ordinance would apply to them. And I do know the Councilmember Piedmont Smith was interested in revisiting that, so that's maybe something we'll keep you all apprised of if that changes. But.
And for the record, the jobs, the related jobs at this property were not totally far off of the living wage ordinance as adjusted for inflation, right, Larry?
Yeah, that's right. So the living wage ordinance was in 2004, Jane. I'm trying to, obviously, I shouldn't go by memory, but when it was started, it
I
was
think that's
$10 an hour in 2004, with a call for it to be adjusted by inflation every year. And so right now, the number is 1321.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 1321 for 2020. And then 2021, it'll be 1329 is what the living wage ordinance calls for per hour.
Yeah, so Milestone's wages were $12.50, which will be increased to 13, maintenance at $13 an hour, and then a groundskeeper at $10.50 an hour, which is quite low. So anyway. Anything else, Larry, that?
No, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that since it was a question that came in afterwards.
And Alex, do you think we should touch on the Woolery abatement?
Yeah, maybe
Or-
we could do that. Yeah, it also bears repeating that, the reason why you had gone in to do the revision of the tax abatement standards is because, properties like Southern Knoll are a good example. The real community benefit, the real underlying reason for the tax abatement is not the employment, it's really the affordable housing. So that's the case in several of these where if the numbers are slightly off, we were not too stressed out about that because really the underlying reason for the tax abatement was something quite different. But the reporting out is part of the function of the form. So yeah, should we talk a little bit about Woolery?
Sure. So Jeff McKim will be turning up late to this meeting. He had an obligation pop up at 4 o'clock, but he did say he was curious about the numbers on the Woolery Mill abatement, and he didn't say specifically what his question was, but it caused me to pull out the CF1 and the SB1 and then chat with Larry and Alex about it. So I think what's of note here is that there's an estimated new investment of $6 million. Actual investment is slightly lower at almost 4.7 million. And then estimated new employment at 45 employees with $762,000 worth of salaries. And of course, reporting no employees and no salaries. So how could we find this compliant? Well, we've found it compliant because the MOU that Woolery Mill Ventures signed with the city of Bloomington interprets, oh, here's Jeff. We can find out what his question is. Hi, Jeff. Is he tumbling in? So I'll just keep chatting about this and then we can call on him for his question specifically. But
Hello.
going back, oh, hi, Jeff. We
Hi.
were just for the record talking about the Woolery Mill abatement. We weren't sure what your question was specifically, but we're kind of going over this slide in detail. So I don't know if you
Oh.
want to provide your question or.
Well, oh, thank you very much. It's very timely, I guess.
Yeah, it's great
yeah.
timing.
Yeah, no, it wasn't so much a specific question. I was trying to understand what was happening with the situation. I mean, what the scope of what was going on, if they really do have zero salaries and zero employees.
Yeah, so Alex and I called Randy before the meeting to find out, last year when they filed their CF1, they wrote 0 because of COVID for the employment numbers. But when we talked to Randy just a little bit ago, the reason he's reporting 0 is because Woolery Mill Ventures doesn't have the anticipated employment. So initially this was going to be a hotel development, and I think they thought the 45 employees would be theirs. But there is employment associated with this development and this property. Right now it belongs to Cassidy Electric, which is a separate entity, and One World Catering, which is a separate entity. So I think there's a general question for the commission, which is, should Woolery Mill Ventures include on their CF1 employment figures that are related to the property, but not direct employees of Woolery Mill Ventures, which is the recipient of the tax benefit
So did the investment made in the One World facility count towards the investment of the abatement, or that's being the AV that's being abated?
Yeah, yes, that's it. That's the primary. That's what he's reporting with the $4.7 million.
So that's what it took to build, essentially, to build the One World facility there.
Well, sort of, because that was another question we asked Randy, and Alex, chime in if you want to, but this doesn't include, I suspect they've made their $6 million investment. He didn't include road infrastructure costs in this $4.7 million total, and then didn't include the adjacent property. So there's like the mill, and then there's the office building that's adjacent to it. And I think because Randy was trying to be, very specifically compliant with this historic preservation project, that he didn't also include the renovation expenses that went into this other building. So I don't know if that answers the question or just raises more questions. Alex, do you want to say anything more about that?
Well, I think, it's our feeling that, and has been, first of all, this is a very weird and complicated tax abatement. It started a really long time ago. When it first started, it had a completely different project anticipated in the facility. It was updated. That was recognized in 2014, long before Jane arrived and before I arrived, and Larry for that matter. So there was a midstream change that recognized that things were going to be different than what they originally were supposed to be. That was not very specific. There was some recognition of phasing in of investments, and so if you review that 2014 MOU, you see that that was already being discussed back then, and it was recognized, and it was a little unclear how it was going to play out. So let's just acknowledge that this one's not a black and white open door, open and closed door kind of situation. What we, the judgment that we were making is, first of all, there's more to come. So we know that that even though he's not captured everything that he's invested, there's still more anticipated. So that suggests that he's on his way to where we originally where the SB1 originally was anticipating from a total investment perspective. It's also probably, if anything, underreporting both employees and investment to date. So for both of those reasons, we felt this was, in line with what was expected, especially with the MOU pivoting to a slightly different scenario.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. It's clear that this investment is generating employment. There are real people out there. There are events. I've been to events. There have been people working there.
Yeah.
Clearly there is employment and there is salary being generated. So it just seems kind of weird to list it as zero, even though I understand it's the Woolery Ventures LLC. It's not, might not actually have any employees of itself. The investment has generated employment and is continuing to generate employment.
Yeah. So if anything, as Jane says, the form itself perhaps needs to be updated. Not sure if we want to do that, but it was submitted, and with that broader context and understanding, I think this is on its way and doing what it's supposed to do.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I would agree with that.
Somebody's been associated with the commission before this project came on board. It has been a long, winding journey, let's just put it that way. But I personally think that I would agree with the staff's recommendation, despite the fact it doesn't show up on this piece of paper, that there has been significant investment. What I would ask, if it's possible, without a lot of extra work, at some future meeting, maybe we can get an update of the numbers that don't show up on this form. In other words, get an idea what the total investment's been for the whole footprint, just so we have an idea of where we started and where we've gone. I think Randy and Woolery Mill Ventures has made very good faith efforts to adhere to what the intent is.
Or
Oh, I
did we
can-
talk to them about giving us a report on a timeline? I thought we talked about that early on, where they'd come back and report in since things were changing so rapidly with the initial plan. So I thought we'd already asked them to do that.
Yeah.
Am I mistaken?
I agree with you, Vanessa. I kind of recall that too, that
Yeah.
because it was a changing target, we
Yes.
did ask for an update somewhere down the line. So
I
it
can
might be
actually
that- Go ahead.
speak to that detail. I was rereading the 2014 MOU today.
Uh-huh.
And the regular updates related to developments with the project prior to triggering the tax abatement. And so since they've triggered the abatement, I think we're technically getting our update with this form. But I do know that Randy is very willing to provide information if there's more that we'd like to see. Sorry for interrupting, Kurt. I just wanted to, since I had just read that
No,
document.
That's great, Jane. That's great. But I think the intent is Vanessa's implying, I believe, and Jeff did too, we're not seeing everything we want to on this form. So if we can get a total update, I don't know how to label it, but something more complete.
Yeah, and I mean, in a way that right now, what's being reflected, and I totally agree with Kurt that, I certainly support staff's recommendation of compliance, or substantial compliance. I think what's showing here is less in the petitioner's favor than they actually deserve, given that this looks like they built an empty building, but in reality, they built a building that has people working for it. So.
Yeah.
I just think they'd want to show that, and the public would want to see that there is actually employment associated with this project.
I'll be happy to provide that information at our next meeting.
Okay. I get that it gets an asterisk. It's a weird situation.
Yeah.
I think Malcolm wants to say
I
something.
was just going to ask if I don't know if this muddies the water or provides any clarification. If we ask on the form or indicate on this document, actual new employees generated by the project.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so the compliance form that they complete is, we can't amend it. It's from the state. There's no wiggle room there, but we can, Larry, ask them for additional information, right?
Yeah, and we've also talked about, because of, Jane and I have certainly talked about the variability of information and the way it's presented on these forms. And so working with the people applying for the abatements to make sure that they are including correct information, that it's presented the correct way. But yeah, we can certainly ask for additional information. That's usually part of the MOU, but I think here we can get that, no problem.
Kurt, I don't want to take us off course, but I know you have a very tight time frame that we have you today. So I don't know if you'd like to hand the reins over to Malcolm, or if you want us to try to hustle through the next item.
Let's see where we can go. And a couple minutes before 5, I'll hand it over to Malcolm if necessary. How's that?
I'll try
Are
not to
we,
put it in my head.
other comments? Go ahead, Malcolm?
I said, if you hand it over to me, I'll try to keep it from going to my head.
So any other questions about the presentation by Jane? If not, do we need to approve this, Jane? I can't, yes, okay, so
Yes.
could we have a
Move
motion?
approval.
Second,
Okay, any discussion?
let me just ask, were there any material changes from the packet as it was distributed? Since I only heard part of it, but I've read the entire packet.
Nope.
Oh, there weren't.
Okay. Thank you.
So if there's no discussion, then we should do a roll call vote. So I'll start with Malcolm.
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Vanessa? Vanessa?
Yes.
Okay, Kate?
Yes.
And I vote yes also. Well done, Jane. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
The next thing I see is electronic meeting policy on the agenda.
Yep,
Yes.
and I will
Okay. Do you want me
pull
to
that
present
up
this if you want?
momentarily. Are you going to present, Larry?
Yeah, I'm
on
happy
that?
to.
Okay.
So this is resolution 2104, the fourth resolution y'all have had this year. After the COVID year, we've been meeting electronically largely because the governor's executive emergency order made it possible for boards and commissions of municipalities to meet virtually. In recognition of how that was working, the General Assembly did pass a law to extend that ability to all boards and commissions, which it wasn't available before COVID-19 struck. And so the General Assembly passed House Enrolled Act 1437, requiring, if you would like to continue to meet in a hybrid fashion, so partially by Zoom or electronically and partially in person, each commission or board would have to adopt its own electronic meeting policy. So the meeting policy in front of you, that's an attachment really to resolution 2104, tracks the statute basically for maximum flexibility for the commission. There are some interesting rules within this law, just so you know. Every meeting has to have at least 50% of the commission physically present at the meeting, and only less than half can participate electronically. So in this case, 5 of you, so 2 could participate electronically, 3 would have to be in person. You can only attend 2 meetings back to back electronically, and then you would have to come to a meeting in person before you could then participate electronically again. And then you can only participate in up to half of the meetings per year electronically. So to not make it complicated at all, that was the wisdom of the General Assembly to kind of strike a hybrid model there. One of the things we will be doing for city staff is keeping track of the number of times individuals have participated electronically. We have to notate that in the minutes anyhow, who was physically present and who was electronic. This particular policy will go into effect at the expiration of the governor's emergency declaration, which is, he has signaled is going to be June 30th, and he is not going to extend the all electronic meetings ability past that point. If in the future another emergency is declared, either by the mayor for a disaster emergency or by the governor in a similar way, we may be able to go back to all virtual meetings, but until then we'll have this hybrid policy in place that will allow at least some flexibility with the board to participate by Zoom.
Great. Any questions for Larry?
Larry, did you say how long the hybrid would be in effect?
This is open-ended, so this will be in perpetuity. You'll be able to do this forever unless they change this statute. That's the purpose of passing the policy.
Thank you.
So I'm assuming we need to have a motion to approve this, Larry?
That's correct. Yeah, approve resolution 2104.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, we'll do a roll call again. And Kate, we'll start with you this time.
Yes.
Vanessa,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Malcolm,
Yes.
and I vote yes also. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all. And as we go in practice, if any of you read through this and have any questions, feel free always to reach out to us, and we'll answer any of those questions and make sure you're squared away.
So I did have one question. There's no limitation. For example, if I do it by distance, the chair can still chair the meeting from remotely?
That's correct, yeah. So whoever's remote still counts toward the quorum, and you can participate as though it's a normal meeting.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you. All right. Anything for the good of the order? And I don't see anything or hear anything. So our next meeting is scheduled for July 14th. And Jane will let us know. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I just, and we were talking about this with Jane earlier. Jane, we may want to just get in the habit of doing a straw vote, a straw
Right.
round table before the end of the meeting to preempt any surprises when it comes to the next meeting and who might be planning to be remote, right? You've got to hit that 50% threshold. So at Beat Coast last night at the Sustainability Commission, we did this, and it was helpful because actually it turned out that several people were not going to be around in person. So it might be a good habit to do that before wrapping up the meeting, and then you get a view as to what the next meeting is going to look like.
Good idea.
So the next meeting is on Alex's favorite day, which is Bastille Day, July 14th. Will anyone be out of town or unavailable to be here in person or have a need to be remote?
I might be storming the Bastille.
Jane, and everyone, I might be taking that week off. It's council recess, and I'm not quite sure. I'm trying to do a legit break at some point in the recess, so that might be it. But I know we're such a tiny crew. I don't know. I'll see what other folks are thinking if I need to be here.
You could still be absent. You're fine to be. If you
Right,
need to
that's
be
what-
absent, you could still be absent. No,
I just didn't want to be absent. I know, but if like a lot of people are absent, I don't know. I don't want to like mess up the meeting totally, because I'm a little flexible.
I should be in town. According to my calendar, I will be in town.
I am too, according to my calendar.
Me too.
Likewise.
Okay, so Kate, that's good. And if you really want to take a true vacation and miss the meeting, feel free to do that too, because sometimes you deserve a complete break.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, I agree. Okay.
All right, so it looks like we're good for the next meeting in terms of having enough people to be in person. And it'll be fun to be back in the room together.
Yes, it will.
All right. Nothing else? We all set? Then I guess we can adjourn the meeting. Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.